Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and tonight I'm going to talk about the election, and I'm going to talk about other topics as well, particularly why Kamala Harris lost. Now, as you know, there were a lot of people who did vote. And if you didn't vote, you can't really bitch about it if you can't vote, because, voting is a privilege that we've been given. And I know a number of us say our vote doesn't count. But let me go ahead and share this map, show you. All right, there we go. There's the map out there. Now, here's what we currently have right now. Trump is at 295 electoral college votes. Harris is at 226. Now, it takes 270 to win. Now, if you look at the map, Donald Trump, he took all 7 swing states. Now, a couple of them haven't been called, but I remember once he won Georgia and North Carolina, he was on his way. But if you look at it now, let's check Nevada. All right, looking at Nevada, 85% of the votes have been reported. He's still up by roughly 4.9 points, which is right around 64,000 votes. So any day, Nevada should be called. Looking at Arizona, he's up about 4.9 points as well. Now, the thing is, Donald Trump in 2016, he won some of the swing states, but he lost the popular vote. Now, because there's the electoral college, you can win that, but lose the popular vote. Now, he won not just the electoral college, but the popular vote as well. He ran a good campaign. The problem with Kamala Harris is she did not run a good campaign. She had no policies. In fact, she tried to mimic some of his. She flip-flopped. Now, I understand that you can change positions. However, from my view, she changed positions to try to appeal to people that she's a centrist when she is a leftist. And if you look at the state where she's from, California is a leftist state. Gavin Newsom is the governor. Now, Gavin Newsom may run in 2028. But if you look at the states, going back to this map, and I have the map up, you look at the plight of the country. The individuals who are basically your farmers, your blue collar workers. I'm not saying you don't have them on the East Coast, but it's the center part of the country. It's like everything is coastal, and in between the two coasts, you have your mountain areas and you have your flat areas. Now, part of Kamala Harris's problem is she didn't take questions. And every time she tried to take a question, she didn't answer it. Now, she didn't answer it, but what she would do is go back to, well, Trump did this, Trump did that, Trump did this, Trump did that. Well, meanwhile, where she was really going to was COVID, because he governed pretty well. Now, nobody is perfect. However, when you look at the 4 years that she had, along with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden had something to do with it as well, he was more of a puppet. To me, Joe Biden was a bad president. He picked a bad vice president, but he said he was going to pick someone of color. He did that for the Supreme Court, and he did that for his vice president. Now, what you have to understand about politics in general is that it runs on cycles. I mean, there are years where the Democrats, they get the Senate, they get the House, they get the presidency. In fact, the last 12 out of 16 years, the Democrats have run the gamut of this country. The problem is, it hasn't gotten any better. You see, here in America, we can't run anything from a communist manifesto. Now, a lot of the Democrats are your elitists. And I will tell you this is why I voted for Trump. Yes, I voted for Trump. I knew what I was getting with Trump. I did not know what I was getting with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, to me, she was a compulsive liar. And you know who else was a compulsive liar? The media. Now, I'm seeing the media today, and they're still lying. I mean, they act like Trump is still a bad guy. And the problem with the Democrats are like children. When they don't get their way, they throw a tantrum. Now, one thing that I see different from this election compared to last election is, again, we had no COVID. So the rules didn't change. You know, the ballot boxes or the ballot harvesting, which had the mail-in ballots coming in after 3 o'clock. Now, I was getting a little nervous when Trump was at 251 electoral college votes, and Pennsylvania had 95% of the precincts that reported. The media didn't want to call Pennsylvania, and there were 2 trucks that pulled up right around 1:26 in the morning. And I said, here we go again. And at that time, he was up around 300,000 votes. So Barry Cunningham, and shout out to him, he had shown the information about the 2 trucks on X, and the 2 trucks totaled 87,000 votes. Now, luckily, and I do believe this, people from X, I believe they influenced the media, because Newsmax called Pennsylvania for Trump. Because if you look at the whole gambit, the media took Kamala Harris and built her up to be, I'm not going to say a messiah like they thought Obama was. They built her up to be someone that could make change. The problem is, you can make change, but that change can go in the wrong direction. Kamala Harris was ranked left of Bernie Sanders. And you can't get any more left than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is, and he's admitted, it's communist. Now, the funny thing about Americans, too, and you have a lot of people on the left that they're talking about women's rights, deleting babies, racism. One of the reasons why the Democrats had a hard time This time, it's because they used identity politics. And they've always used it. Now, don't get me wrong. If you are an uninformed voter, identity politics does work. But for the most part, everything that Democrats tried to throw at us, it was smacked down. Don't get me wrong. The Democrats tried to put some mischievous acts out there. They were caught. Now, the only thing that I can see right now that can happen is they could probably, and I don't believe it's going to happen, but the House is still up for grabs. Now, I want the Republicans to take the House. They can take the majority. That way, if they have all three branches of government, or if they have the House and the Senate, Trump can put his agenda through. Now, of course, just as I mentioned before, the Democrats have been in power for 12 of 16 years. Now, speaking of Black people, no more Black people this time voted for Trump. But Black people, particularly Black men, we've had people like Obama make fun of us, try to tell us how to vote if we didn't vote for Kamala Harris. It's like he didn't care about the economy. And see, with all these elitists out there who have all of the money, they don't live like us. I mean, you have people like Cardi B, Beyonce, Lizzo, LeBron James, Oprah. All of them were stumping for Kamala Harris. Now, think about the parties. I remember at one time the Republican Party was that party, and the Democratic Party was the party for working people. Now, it changed because of Donald Trump. In fact, the Republican Party now has a different type of Republican. The Republican Party in the past, the George Bush Republicans, they were more of your establishment Republicans, your Mitch McConnells, those individuals, and they had been in power for a long time. Problem is, nothing got done. And if you think about the issues that we voted for that were pertinent to the economy and border security. Now, again, the media, and the media showed you their bias. I mean, if you look at MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, you could tell that they were all in for Kamala Harris, and they went to bat for Kamala Harris. When she was questioned about her policies, excuses were made for her. Now, when J.D. Vance went on CNN with Dana Bash, it's more confrontational. Now, the problem I have with the Democratic Party right now is they like to call anybody that doesn't agree with them fascists. Well, if you think about what they're doing, they're talking about Project 2025. And Project 2025 is a 900-page document that was written by the Heritage Foundation. Anybody who's not familiar with the Heritage Foundation is a conservative group. But I believe the Heritage Foundation, the media never reported this, the Heritage Foundation endorsed Kamala Harris. But one thing that you did not hear about during this election was Agenda 47. That was the Trump manifesto. Project 2025 was not. Now, when it comes to wanting to put your adversaries behind bars because you don't agree with them, the left, they do that. Now, it's funny that everything's been peaceful right now because generally you have the left right now. They're putting their tears out right now. They're lamenting. But let me tell you something. If you're on the right or on the center, don't sit down. One thing about the left, they don't give up too easily. In other words, they don't take no for an answer. Now, Kamala Harris did her concession speech today, and it basically sounded like a campaign speech. And when I listened to that campaign speech about 4 o'clock, seems to me that she didn't learn a lesson. Now, number one, with her going back to her, she picked the wrong vice presidential candidate. Now, Tim Walz, he's got issues of his own. He is the governor of Minnesota. And being from the state of Minnesota, it's a liberal state. And it's a wonder, you're looking at this map here. Illinois and Minnesota have a lot of issues. Minnesota had the George Floyd incident, or had Black Lives Matter, Antifa. They burned down the city. And then some of them were let out. No cash bail. That was Kamala Harris's idea. And Kamala Harris, she even admitted when she was asked by Sonny Houston on a View, would you do anything differently? She said she liked the way Joe Biden was doing everything. Now, I know she supports her boss, but she kept on mentioning it in her rallies. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. But she couldn't answer direct questions. She was all over the place. And I believe she was all over the place on purpose, because in her mind, she was basically denying what was going on during her administration when asked about it. And one thing about the American people that's different today than in past times, I'm talking about the past 60, 70 years. A number of Americans are dependent on government. They think government is the answer. The problem is government is too big. It's not efficient. I'll go to this. When it came to the border, Kamala Harris always talked about having a border bill put up, but Donald Trump, he wasn't in power. He had Congress kill the bill. Well, he had Congress kill the bill because it wasn't a good bill, because the bill did not provide any security. In fact, it supplied monies to go to other bureaucrats. Kamala Harris was talking about $25,000, given $25,000 to buy a home. Well, somebody's got to pay for that. She says, tax your billionaires, billionaires. Well, what she didn't understand is the millionaires and billionaires, they were funding her campaign as well. She had 3 or 4 times the amount of money that Donald Trump had. Plus, she had the media behind her. And for the most part, from my humble opinion, the individuals who voted for Kamala Harris, even though she didn't have any policies, they only voted for her based on gender, race, deletion of babies, and hate Trump. Now, that is not a smart way to utilize your vote because you may hurt individuals who voted for Trump. And some of them didn't have a lot of money, but you might not have a lot of money. Nobody ever thinks about that. And she brings on people like Charlemagne the God. She got celebrity happy. And a number of her supporters, I believe they were bussed in. She did not have a big rally. Nobody trusted her. Some of the celebrities, I believe, were paid to stump for her. Now, a long time ago, I would probably accept that behavior from the Republicans because they were the party of the rich. It's a whole new party. Now, what Trump did, he ran a much better campaign, especially when he had the garbage truck up there. So Joe Biden called Trump supporters garbage after Trump called, well, this wasn't Trump, and Trump didn't know about it. He had a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York, and he had this comedian up there. Can't remember the comedian's name, but the comedian said Puerto Rico is an island of garbage. Now, everybody got real offended by that joke. Now, these comedians, they really can't make me laugh, but I knew what the joke was about. Puerto Rico has a recycling problem, a landfill problem. They're not cleaning the island like they should be. That's what he meant. He said nothing about the people. But Joe Biden said something about the Trump supporters. Now, what that actually did, that just motivated Trump supporters to go out and vote. And also, when you had Mark Cuban, he owns the Dallas Mavericks. Well, Mark Cuban said that Trump is afraid of strong, intelligent women. That's why he doesn't have them on his team. Bullshit. He has a number of them. Well, that one comment right there, it got more voters out. Now, I'm not saying that some of the Trump supporters weren't dumb voters either. Some of them were. But you have a number of them out there who they believed in what he said. That's why they showed up at his rallies. They also looked at what he did in the past. I remember Kamala Harris would always say, well, we're not going back. Well, maybe we ought to turn that page back. I don't want to go forward and we're living in a country that's communist. Because one thing that Kamala Harris believes in, when I hear that word equity, now it's bad enough when I hear the word equality. When I mean having equality, I mean equal opportunities. Now, having an opportunity to go forward doesn't mean that we all start at the same place. No, she wanted everybody to start at the same place and end at the same place. Well, that doesn't exist. And her campaign at first started out a campaign of joy. But as we got to the end, that joy was no longer there. She was desperate. Again, it was the media. The media had a lot of influence. And the media What they did, they paid surrogates to come on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC to lie. And she believed the lie. I mean, she kept on putting out Project 2025, Project 2025, Project 2025. Well, in the end, there was no Project 2025. And then everybody in the media, including Kamala Harris, called Trump a fascist, said Trump's Madison Square Garden rally was like a Nazi meeting. So I've never heard an American refer to another American as a Nazi. If you think about it, Trump was already president. So how can you be a fascist when, yes, you have executive order privilege, but you have to go through Congress to get some of your agenda passed. I know if you have 50% of Senate or the House, or it could be both, if you want to pass a tax cut, you can you can do that. Now, something else that Kamala Harris wanted to get rid of was the filibuster. So generally, it takes 60 votes in the Senate to pass something. Well, the filibuster protects the minority part of the Senate. And you need the filibuster. Well, let's take an issue that she's thinking about: bleeding babies. Well, if she had the Congress to bring back Roe versus Wade on a federal level, where she made a big mistake is, well, what if your party isn't in power and you eliminate the filibuster? Well, the other party can come in when there's no filibuster and say, okay, we have 51 votes. So we're going to go back to mandating to the states. That's what she didn't understand. And you have a number of individuals out here, particularly a lot of African American and then women, ones who voted for her. They don't understand politics. And if you think about it, they live in those blue states. I remember at one time, Virginia used to be red. It's blue. It's blue because of Loudoun County and Fairfax County. And those counties are around Washington, D.C. And around Washington, D.C., what is the biggest employer? Well, the biggest employer in Washington, D.C. is the federal government. So again, going back to looking at the map, and this map is the latest one. I believe this one is Associated Press. Now you also have other races out there too. Looking at the state Senate go by. It looks like right now in Arizona, Ruben Gallego, he's winning. Now only 65% of the votes have reported. Sam Brown, he's winning. I believe he's winning slightly. Very, very. It's not even a half a point. It's about 2 or 3/10 of a point. He's winning. Let's bring it down here. Okay, Rick Scott is one. Maryland, okay, Angela Alsenbrooks is one. Now this one, looking at it from yesterday, Alyssa Slotkin, I really thought that Mike Rogers was going to pull it out. Now, if you look at it right now, he's only down 0.3, which is 0.3%. So he's down around I'm gonna say 18,000 votes. And you have a lot of other results that have come in. Now, with this election, let's take a look at the state of Michigan right now. If you look at Detroit, Flint, Lansing, Grand Rapids, and Marquette, those are the areas that are heavily Democratic. Now, I'm going to, let me bring my state up here. So I go back to the map. Let me bring Indiana up here for a minute. Okay, this is my state of Indiana, where I live. Now, if you really look at Indiana, okay, this map hasn't updated itself, but I can tell you where a lot of your areas are. If you look at this area right here, this is where Gary, Hammond, Highland, this Lake County, Indiana. That's always been a blue area. Over here, this is St. Joseph County. It's where South Bend is. That's always been a blue county. And then you come down to Marion County, which is Indianapolis. That's also blue. I believe the congressman for that area is Andre Carson. And if you come down here to Monroe County, Indiana, that's Bloomington. Now, what is prominent to those four areas? You have a lot of your colleges in those areas, like St. Joseph's County, that's where Notre Dame is. You have Purdue Northwest, the Hammond campus, and also Tippecanoe County. That's the other region, which Tippecanoe County is right up here. Because after Tippecanoe County, you have Clinton County and then Boone County. Well, that's also a Democratic stronghold. And again, when you deal with politics, you have to understand what's going on in your state. A lot of people don't understand what's going on in their own state. Now, if you look at what's next to us, Illinois. Now, Illinois, if they didn't have this area up here, the Chicago area, and then you have Peoria, and I think Rockford is up here, right in this area, Champaign, that is in this area. Well, the areas that are more urban and that have a lot of colleges, they tend to go blue. Now down here, all right, I believe this may be down here near St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken. When you right along I-64, I-70, well, that's you're in the area East St. Louis, very poor area in the state of Illinois. It is east of the Mississippi River. When you cross the Mississippi River, you're in the Missouri, you're in the St. Louis land. But I'm bringing all this up so you can know what's going on in each county. Because we have a midterm election coming up. Midterm is very important as well. But understanding, let's go to the governor's map. Okay, we have some governors out here. And this one has been updated again. So now Trump is at 301 electoral college votes. So that means they just called Nevada. And it's amazing to see this in during this presidential election. Trump swept all of the battleground states. I remember one time Ohio was a battleground state. Now let's go back to Arizona. he will take Arizona. It is looking red right now. He's got Alaska. So the way it looks now from this map, once Arizona is caught, he's going to end up with 312 electoral college votes. Now, again, looking at everything, 27 House races are toss-ups or favored to change parties. That's what I'm actually looking at, because the Republicans, they already have flipped 3 Senate seats. Now, I'm waiting for McCormick. And if we can go to the Senate, let's check the Senate interactive map. And we're going into Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a close one between, I believe, Dave McCormick and Bob Casey. Bob Casey has been in Pennsylvania for a long time. Funny thing about Casey, he tried to distance himself from Kamala Harris, and he had Trump commercials running. Well, Bob Casey votes with the Democrats all the time. I know. I used to live in Pennsylvania. I lived in Berks and I lived in Lehigh County. Now, Lehigh County is another area that's blue. That's where your Allentowns are. That's where well, Northampton County, that's also blue because that's where Bethlehem is. But Allentown is the big kahuna up in Lehigh County. I mean, I worked in Allentown and lived in Slatington. Now, Berks County, Reading is the big kahuna there, but that's always red. Then you get into Lancaster County. So the Republicans, I believe they need to pick up 2 more seats in the Senate. And then in the House, they need to win the House back. Because in the House, that's when you have all your committees. The House has the purse strings. But going on, one thing I want individuals to look at when they're dealing with politics, don't worry about the polls so much. And this is what the media did during this election as well. They tried to drum up the polls to make it look like it was a neck and neck race. They didn't give you the methodology. They took a sample. And generally, pollsters, they don't poll every week. Sometimes, and I caught it myself, the Democrats, because a lot of these polls came from your mainstream media, they wouldn't poll for weeks and they would use old numbers. And see, they're doing that to confuse the public. That's why I'm here to teach you what's going on, because we have a midterm election coming up. We just got finished the presidential election. Midterm is going to be important too. Because that, again, can the Republicans maintain the House and Senate? I know the Democrats have had it for the last 12 out of 16 years. And that includes 3 presidencies. But going over everything, you look at shows like The View, people like Joy Behar, Sonny Houston, Whoopi Goldberg. Those individuals don't know anything about politics. It was all a hate Trump fest. You have all of these elitists up here trying to tell your average everyday person what to do, how to vote, which they don't resonate with us. And yet Kamala Harris going into black churches. She's one that believes in deletion of babies, but then says she talks to her pastor. This is the kind of rhetoric you were hearing from her, and the media was letting her get away from, letting her get away with it. The media wouldn't push back. Now, on one occasion, I saw Anderson Cooper push back, but very rarely did Kamala Harris get pushed back. Now, Brett Baird pushed her back. She had a hard time with Fox, and Brett Baird is the lightweight. I mean, she didn't have to go up against Tucker or who's on Fox now, Gutfeld or Harris Faulkner. She didn't have to go up against those individuals. Laura Ingalls, Jesse Waters. And right now, I'm just going to put it out there like this. The media is corrupt. Don't listen to anything that the media has to say. The media is there to deceive you. And Kamala Harris was feeding off all the lies of the media. She's talking about fighting and joy. Well, nobody trusts a liar. Now you get these individuals like Van Jones, right? And if you go on some of these content creators, now they show clips. I don't show a lot of clips. They have liberals crying on a temper tantrum. And generally, your liberal voter out there is a low information voter. They vote on identity politics or emotion. They don't care anything about the economy. They're voting on an issue that deals with race and gender, symbolism. Black people vote on symbolism. Black people, and let's check this example out. I know in Chicago, they had a Republican, white male. I don't remember his name, but he was running against Johnson. Well, I already knew right then and there that if you're a Republican and if you're a Caucasian, you're not going to become mayor of Chicago. Why? Because Chicago is a black city and they vote based on identity politics. Same with Detroit, same with Milwaukee, same with Baltimore. And if you look at all these blue cities out there, like Chicago, who wants to impose some more taxes, these cities are always going to be poor. Gary, Indiana, Flint, Michigan, Philadelphia, Houston, Dallas. Certainly the bigger cities have some better populations, but the crime is still high. You have people who depend on the government. Now, another big issue, like I said, I'm going from issue to issue, and I'm bouncing around the migrants. And let me tell you, they're out. In fact, every restaurant that I've gone to, whether it's Five Guys or the original Pancake House, I see a lot of us working there. Although I did see at Applebee's, most of them, they're of Hispanic origin. Now, I have nothing against Hispanics. I have nothing against migrants either, as long as they do it the right way. But when you're giving migrants the kitchen sink before you give your own people, that's an issue. Again, if you look what happened in North Carolina, you had individuals out there after that hurricane. Some of them didn't even qualify for that $750. Some of them had to pay back the $750. See, these are issues that Kamala Harris had, but they didn't resonate with people. You're going to give a hurricane victim $750 while you give a victim who crosses the border illegally $13,000 worth of EBT and $5,000 stipend behind that. And that's a month, I believe. Or at least the EBT is a month. This is why we vote the way we vote. And the thing about the Obamas, I know Michelle Obama was out there as well. They actually think we're stupid. We're not stupid. I mean, as a black man, am I offended when another black tells me I'm a coon because I didn't vote for the person he or she wanted me to vote for? No. But they want you to stay on that plantation. Many of us in the African American community aren't politically savvy. The bottom line is this: you have to put your country first. Remember that old saying by John F. Kennedy? It's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. We have a number of people who don't believe in that. They believe that they're entitled to something, even if they don't work for it. Now, one must understand that a politician is not going to be your best friend. In fact, that politician might not even know you because they don't come and visit you. But when they make policies or develop policies like House bills and Senate bills, and they involve money, that does affect us because our taxes could be going up or our taxes could be going down. And generally, when you are a politician, I'm just going to say this about the politicians. Many of them have been bought and paid for anyway, and that's on both sides. And this is why the Republican Party is a lot different now than what it used to be. Again, if you look at the parties, they've switched. Used to be the Democrats were the ones that were wearing this kind of clothing. And the Republicans, they were the CEOs. They had all the money. And Trump changed that. And although Trump makes a lot of money, Trump started in the construction field. He understands what it is to work with your hands. Now, Kamala Harris didn't. And I remember she mentioned several times that, oh, Trump had money given to him. Well, that's what families do. They passed it down. But she was always claiming that she was from a middle class neighborhood. But then she would, on the other hand, talk about how she grew up like us. Well, she didn't grow up like a black person. Problem with her is every place that she went, she tried to be that person. It's like multiple personalities. And in the end, that just doesn't work. The bottom line is this. Trump got the win. It was fair and square. And I know half the country doesn't like it, but I remember when my side lost, and I voted for Trump in 2020, and there were shenanigans that went on with that election because of the coronavirus. But what did we do? We waited till the midterm elections came. We took over the House. Of course, the Democrats kept the Senate, and that slowed anything down that Joe Biden wanted to deliver. Now, Joe Biden did keep the tariffs, and that's another thing too. A tariff, when Kamala Harris was talking about a tariff will bring more deficit. Well, How can a tax from another country, which is actually providing the government with more revenue, give us more debt? What gives us debt is the spending. And the spending is giving illegals stipends and EBT on a monthly basis, a large sum of it. You're sending money to Ukraine. That's what the problem is. Many of us in America don't understand that. And then you want to raise our taxes to get more money from us. And that's what Kamala Harris's policies were. I mean, she's definitely left the Bernie Sanders, and she wanted the government to do everything. I heard her mention price gouging. Well, the government is not in charge of a private business. And the way she talks about price gouging, if she suspects any business that is doing that, she's going to have the government try to run up in that business to see their books, or to try to make it look like, or try to see if they're price gouging. First of all, this is what Kamala Harris doesn't understand. Businesses are there to make money, and you have to compete. She never had to write a check for somebody unless it's a government check. She never had to hire people because she doesn't have her own business. And a lot of these politicians don't know anything about business. Now, that's what attracted everybody to the Trump Vance campaign, because they set up businesses, they were in the military, had values. Democrats don't really have any values. And many of us are tired of the transgenderism. We're tired of the feminization of men. We're tired of monies going to people who shouldn't be here illegally, come across legally. We're tired of a bad education system. We're tired of the media. And those are the issues. And think about what I just said. It's one of the reasons why Kamala Harris lost the race. She was fake. I mean, everything that came out of her mouth was bullshit. Everything. It was a lie. And we saw it. But to deflect, she tried to blame everything on Trump. And I remember it was yesterday, early in the morning yesterday, on election day. It may have been in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, particularly the Philly area, has a lot of corruption going on. Voting. Well, Laura Trump was on it. But the poll watchers who were Republicans, they got turned away early in the morning. Until a judge struck it down. But that's what the Democrats want to do. If you think about it, Kamala Harris didn't get any votes. She was installed. Now, I believe she was installed because of the money that went to Biden, and she was on a ticket. But she didn't get any votes. And the media still made her look like a darling. She didn't even do any press conferences for the first month. Now, when it got into October, that's when you heard a little bit more from her, because individuals were tired of her being quiet. Now, I understand why they wanted her to be quiet, because loose lips sink ships. And a closed mouth also, you don't have to feed it. But in the end, when it came to her policies, she remembered half the lines, used the teleprompter. And the line that just kept on coming out is, I'm from a middle class working family. We heard that all the time. Oh, I was a attorney, I was a DA, dealt with the cartels. She didn't even go to the border, except for a photo op just to say she went to the border. So her whole campaign was a lie. It was co-opted by the media. And this is what I want a number of you all to do. Because even when Trump was in office, you think the left in this country is going to sit back? No, they're going to magnify everything he does. But here's the difference now. He can't run again. And this is why the Republicans have to keep the House, because if they don't and Democrats win the House, guess what they're going to try to do? They're going to try to impeach him again, because he was impeached twice. That's what they're going to try to do. But here's the problem. Even when the Democrats had the Senate, he wasn't removed. Only the Senate can remove the president. I mean, I remember when Bill Clinton, he got impeached. He wasn't removed. So basically it went all for naught. Media's in bed with the Democratic Party. Now, I do believe that the Republicans need to buy some media themselves. Because right now, the only media that I see that has an inkling of conservatism to it, Fox used to have a lot. They have so many individuals, but Fox has gone more left as well. Newsmax is about the only one out there. Now, I know Chris Cuomo, he's on News Nation, and I know Bill O'Reilly is on News Nation. I know First, they may be a little conservative, but they're small. In fact, I didn't hear of News Nation the First until I got to YouTube. So, the bottom line is this. The media is corrupt, especially the corporate media. The Democrats had a lot of money given to certain candidates by George Soros. Look at the DAs. So when you have all this money flying around, you're going to have a corrupt individual. Mark Zuckerberg. It's kind of funny, I didn't hear from him this time. Ballot boxes. Let's see. Lord Trump was on it this time now. Ronna McDaniel did a terrible job. She let a lot of things slide. Everybody knew what was going on. But even the media, they tried to cover that up. Until 3 years later. But in the end, I see a lot of liberals crying. And these people are not very strong people, but they'll get violent in a heartbeat. I think they have mental disorders. They do. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And the people who they call racist, misogynist, that's them. But see, they're allowed to do it. They don't call each other out on it because they own all the media. And they're in the black church as well. I mean, people like Jamal Bryant, he endorsed Kamala Harris. Does he know Kamala Harris's policies? No. These black churches let politicians come up there every 4 years and use their church and they let them sound like a preacher to black folk. They love to put a lot of celebrities out there. Celebrities are there for entertainment, but they think black people are entertaining. They think that's what it takes, get your booty to the polls. I remember when that was out back in 2020. Now, I tell you, when they called that one state for Donald Trump, I felt a little woosah. That just I was able to let the air out because, yeah, I wanted Trump to win. It wasn't for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris isn't for the military. She isn't for the working man or woman. She could care less. She's not even for blacks. But just because she went to a black school, and I believe she transferred to Howard. But you have a number of people who are at black schools who aren't black. But I also believe that the election, yeah, wasn't based on gender. Yeah, it was. Because you had a number of women who voted for Kamala Harris because she's a woman. But men, when they vote for Donald Trump, they were looked at as being misogynists. But the women are doing the same thing. But when you're controlled by the media, that's how the media is. The media is only one way. It's for the Democrats. They put up polls that were inaccurate. I mean, every night it was, oh, this race is tied. And once you really get the real numbers, the race wasn't tied. Donald Trump had to lead all the time. They didn't want to tell him because the race wouldn't have been competitive. The race wasn't competitive anyway. I mean, think about it. Kamala Harris is still stuck at 226, and that's where she's going to end up. And I know her campaign knew that she was losing. But the worst thing that she did was she pulled a Hillary Clinton, walked out on her supporters, but then she came back the next day, which was today, and gave her concession speech. But again, her concession speech, to me, it wasn't genuine. It wasn't from the heart. It gave me the feel that she was still out there on a campaign trail. But we're going to keep fighting, keep fighting. Well, unless she can run for politics again, my humble opinion, I believe her political career is over because everybody saw her lies. They're not going to trust her. Now, her best bet is to go back to California because it's a blue state. That her and Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters, they have California values. And if you look at the state of California, how crazy it is out there, they want to bring that to the whole country. That doesn't work. It's not really working in California because if it was working in California, they would have so many Californians move to other states like Texas and Arizona. Now they're going into Idaho. Problem is, when they leave a liberal state, they take that liberal mindset with them and infect the new areas that they live in. Because I know one thing the Democrats thought they could do yesterday. They're trying to turn Texas blue. They thought that Colin Allred, that was running against the Texas senator yesterday. I think his name is Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz running against Ted Cruz. Well, Colin Allred is as radical as hell, real radical, dangerously radical. thought he was going to win. He ended up losing by 10 points. Something else that they tried to pull. They tried to say that Harris was 3 points in front of Trump in Iowa. Knew that was a false poll. Trump ended up winning Iowa by 10 points. Now, Shifty Schiff, you know who he is? Adam Shifty Schiff. He won the Senate. He beat Steve Garvey. Now, I don't like that guy because he's the one that came out with the Russia when he was a congressman, when Trump was in office. Now, since the Republicans have the Senate, I want to know who the Senate Majority Leader is going to be. And I hope it's not Mitch McConnell. I'm glad it's not going to be Chucky Schumer. The bottom line is, right now, I want to see what the Republicans can do. The Democrats have had the House, the Senate, and the presidency for the last 12 out of 16 years. Just want to see what someone else can do. Now, again, what I see with the Republicans now, the Republicans have gotten younger and they've gotten a different mindset. They're more your working individuals now. They're not your establishment. I mean, you think about who Kamala Harris had with her, the Cheneys. Liz Cheney. These are rhinos. Bottom line with the rhinos are really liberals who are in the Republican Party. Now, let me go back to something else that may have killed Harris, the woman's vote. Now, I was thinking myself, yes, I was thinking this. And I thought most of the women were going to vote for Kamala Harris based on the deletion of babies issue. When it all came out, 100%. Single women. Kamala Harris had 60%. Donald Trump had 40%. Single women. Now, I didn't get the information on the married women, but that single woman statistic was surprising to me. But you have to look at it too. There were going to be a number of women who were going to vote for Trump. Now, you've had some dingbats out there too, particularly on a view that said uneducated white women voted for Trump. Well, just let me get this to people out there, you lefties out there. Just because you have a degree, it does not make you educated. You went through a curriculum, and that's it. Whether you have a bachelor's, a master's, or PhD. You're no more educated than the next person. Yeah, you can get through a curriculum, but everything that you learn in school doesn't necessarily transfer to what you're going to learn on a job. And you have people who don't have degrees, who have businesses. And I think right now we have to get this concept that everybody's got to go to college. College is good for some, and it's not good for everybody. It's good for some, but it's not good for all. And you have too much bloviating about college. I went to college. College is costly. And see, Kamala Harris was talking about business. Black men, she had mentioned weed. So what you want to put some dispensaries out there so think all black men smoke weed? It's ridiculous. But you think about it, individuals that had color, You had one named Barack Obama. Did he do anything for African Americans? No, indeed he did. But we found out it was too late. We were used. And that's what Kamala Harris thought was going to happen to her. But in the end, never let yourself get deceived. You know, look at what's going on around you. And when you have people running for office, look at their voting record. Don't listen to what they say. Now, if they change positions from a position they had 5 or 10 years ago and they stay consistent with that new position, that's one thing. But when they really believe in what they say and they change positions to get elected, knowing that that's not what they're going to do, that's what you have to be aware of. And that's Kamala Harris. She's a compulsive liar. That's why she didn't make it to big time. That's why people like me voted for Trump. I knew what I was getting. And he was the better person. And I don't care what anybody says. Let's go back. Let's go back to the way we had it. I don't want to go forward to a socialist type of economy. Because socialism becomes communism, which is tyranny. We talk about fascism. Democrats out here don't want free speech. So everything they say that the Donald Trump is going to do and Project 2025, they're going to do. Because they believe in tyranny. So as I conclude, the election was a landslide. I'm happy that President Trump is in there for the second term. I believe the economy, the border will be better. He has to win the House and the Senate. Sign executive orders. Can't get rid of these regulations. Don't use the money for useless wars. Those are some examples. Bring down energy prices by fracking. Bring down energy prices. You can lower the prices on other sectors because it takes energy, whether it's fossil fuel, whether it's batteries, to run other sectors like construction, manufacturing, and even hospitality. Keep taxes low. I like no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security. If you're a tipped employee, no taxes on tips. Also get rid of the 87,000 IRS agents. We don't need anybody sneaking up on us when we have $600 or more in the bank and we make a transaction. Bottom line is, you vote for policies, not for identity. Again, you vote for policies, not my identity, not my identity. Why? Because if you vote for policies, you're more likely to be in better economic shape. Whereas if you vote for identity politics, you'll always be in a poorhouse. So in the end, I have to ask you this question. You want freedom? Or do you want tyranny or authoritarianism? You make the call. The choice is yours. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show. right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. Now, here's where you can find me. If you watch the 411 Talk Zone radio show channel, once I record all of my videos, I post my videos on YouTube, of course, on X, formerly Twitter, also on Truth Social and Rumble. Now I have a second channel, the QCIS channel. And on that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and of course, math. Once I record all of my videos, I post the QCIS channel to YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. And in the end, always be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.